Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependency podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. That is for being codependent. Now in your 20s, you're exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in crap relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Today's episode is sponsored by Frame, a therapist matching service. Stay tuned till the end of the episode to hear more. And I want to come on really quick. I am learning about audio quality. And in today's episode, my amazing guest, Crystal, her audio, it sounds a little faint at the beginning. Just know around the second minute it should kick in. And you might hear some Apple Watch chimes. Might hear me clicking around on my laptop a little bit. I am just learning along with you guys and committing to doing better each episode. So there's my heads up. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I recorded this at dusk and the lighting shows that. I am working on the lighting too. And appreciate your understanding and patience. All right, here's Crystal. So today's guest is Crystal Morgan. She is a life coach who helps her clients better connect with themselves and the things they want in life. Her superpower is bringing clarity to her clients on the true issues holding them back, helping them accept who they are right now, working with them on who they want to become, and creating a life they enjoy. That's a great superpower. Her passion is to help people learn how to respond to anything that happens in life, why current actions are not leading to the life they want by helping them discover what they truly desire and love what they do in life, how they do it, and the reasons why they do it. Crystal Morgan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, let's hear a little bit about you, Crystal, and how come you decided to pursue coaching?
Yeah. So it's funny because I definitely years ago, if you had told me that's what I would be doing, that's not what I would have come up with. But just a little bit about my background. I'm actually originally from the East Coast and then moved to the West Coast some time ago because I just enjoy the weather. But grew up in a relatively normal household. I did have some sexual abuse in my past, which sent me on a journey of life of honestly feeling abandoned, rejected, just all of the negative feels which played out in my life. And the interesting thing about that is if you saw me, you would have thought totally has it all together. On paper, everything looked really great. I did everything everybody told me to do. I was extremely ambitious, things like that, but mostly because I was hoping to prove something at the end of the day, you know? And then around after I graduated college, I'm in my dream job, making good money, and I still felt extremely empty. It still felt like there's something missing. I'm not feeling a whole. I couldn't tell you what wasn't clicking, but it always felt like I was looking at other people. They were crushing it. They knew how to crush it. And I just didn't know how to do life because I was like, I should be enjoying this more. Other people look like they are, but I'm not. I'm pretending and I'm mimicking, but I'm not. And so that set me on just like a 5-year journey of really trying to deal with me, what was going on, and figuring it all out. And what inspired me to really become a coach was really just that journey. I mean, it's like, when I hit that low, it was dealing with depression, suicidal thoughts, all sorts of stuff that I was just like, who am I? What is happening here? Like, I thought I did everything that everybody told me to do, but here I am anyway. And so that journey alone is what inspired me to really help other people go through the same thing. I mean, it was such an amazing payoff to go from not sure, what you want to do with your life, not necessarily in a career sense, but just in a like who you are.
Yeah.
Like to go from that to enjoying your life and waking up in the morning excited to see what kind of craziness is going to happen because you're human and you're messy and you're bound to do something really weird, or just to have different things go on but not necessarily respond to it from a place of like, am I going to be loved, am I going to be accepted, all of that, and just decide, you know what, I'm enough, and I'm deciding to live my life the way that I want to. And that's the thing that I love to walk people through. It's like, let's just dump all the extra stuff. Let's find out what you want.
Right.
And then go get it.
Yeah.
Just go get it. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And I sense so many listeners are at that precipice, right? Feeling empty. I've done all the things, right? Aren't I supposed to be, right? I pleased my parents, I pleased my partner, I pleased my friends, my boss. Aren't all my I's dotted and my T's are crossed? Why do I feel so empty?
Right.
Right?
What's happening? Yeah.
And, one more question about your journey, because, right, all these young women are at this precipice. Actually, there might be two, but what was that first step in, like, towards that journey? How were you able to reject and let go of the expectations?
Yeah. So it first came to getting the awareness of the fact that I was even doing that I was
Right.
trying to accomplish something else in another kind of way. And then I think like the biggest actual step beyond that was acceptance of myself. I think that that's the hardest part, of the journey, is just kind of getting to this place where I don't know what it is about, just us and even as women, and there it could just be the cultural things that happen. I mean, we have all this stuff at us. We need to look great.
Mm-hmm.
We need to like be absolutely on point all the time, but we also need to be like the CEO boss. We need to be all of this stuff and have the great relationship, and a lot of pressure on that. And when I was able to say, you know what, I don't have to be that person. Who do I actually want to be? And be okay with not just the parts of myself that I liked, but also the parts that I didn't like. I
Right.
get quirky sometimes. I say weird stuff, and sometimes I do weird stuff. And now it's just like I just laugh at it because it's like we all have our pieces of us that aren't great, that we don't agree with. But I've come to the place where it's just like that's just me, and I don't. And it's not. It's compassion. I always tell people don't go over to pity. It's too much of that and you'll start pitying yourself. But just having
Right.
compassion for myself and realizing I'm human, I'm messy, and I'm going to continue to go through life with a couple messy pieces, but that's okay. That's just
Right.
what life is about, you
Right.
know? Mm-hmm.
So, being at this precipice, recognizing you've done all the things, right? You're everything to everyone, nothing to yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
just sensing, all right, I need to practice compassion. I need to accept the parts of me, all of me. And this sucks. So I'm going to, there's this path. There's this other path. I'm going to try and take that journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you had known it was going to take 5 years, right? I think some of us, we hope, will just be cured in a day. I mean, what, like, at the end of that journey, what would you tell Crystal day one when she was starting out and hoping for maybe something a little quicker than 5 years?
I know. I think that number, I know that that can sound really intimidating to people. And I had a lot of years of just not dealing with things. So it's different timelines for everyone. But what I
Right.
would say to myself, kind of going back to that, one simple statement is you're going to be okay.
Hmm.
And just go on the journey of it, because that is 10 times quicker than trying to just rush it.
Right.
Because then your motivation at the beginning of the day is not actually to really get healing in the places that you need to get healing and actually work on those areas. Your motivation is just to get to the other side so you can feel better.
Yeah.
You're just removing yourself and disassociating from the entire thing.
Right.
And so it actually takes you longer if you kind of think in your brain, like, this needs to happen in a year, which I did. Like, I was kind of like, I went through therapy and I work with other coaches and consultants and all of that kind of stuff. And I even remember telling, like, somebody I was working with, I was like, it's been like 3 weeks, like, why am I still like trying to figure this out,
Right. It takes
Um,
21 days to make a habit.
yeah,
I should be cured by now.
this should be, yeah. And then I learned that, and that's why I guess it goes back to compassion too. I learned that it's not about getting a cure, it's not about getting like this magical fix where all of a sudden you don't have to deal with anything anymore. It's about
Right.
really learning and having compassion on where you are right now so that you can be equipped to take on the new things that happen, because life is going to happen. Life's going to throw you a curveball. Nobody expected a pandemic. Like, there's no way to prep for that.
No.
There's always going to be something that comes up later. So instead of trying to think about, okay, when is this whole thing going to be over? What's just the next step that I need to take to get to the next place where I'm trying to go? And
Right.
keeping it simple. And I think that's what I would tell myself. Like, you're going to be okay. Just take it one step at a time. There is no cure for humanity. So let that be and just allow yourself to go on the journey, and that's the beauty when you work with therapists and coaches and consultants. You have somebody going along with you as
Right.
well, not by yourself. You're
No.
not alone at all. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
there are a lot of professionals like you and I who we've been on the journey and we can
Right.
say, like, no, don't take that turn, go left. Like, good, okay, good, keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just kind of, just signposts, support, and
Mm-hmm.
also our experience that we've made it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I first went to therapy at 20. I'm I'm not still in therapy. I go to therapy. I love therapy. And yeah, I sense I was hoping to be fixed in an hour, and it takes time. But like you said, right, those 5 years, you would have just added more to the misery, and maybe it would have taken that much longer to heal from all of it. You would have like dug those wounds a little deeper, dug that
Mm-hmm.
hole a little further. And so, right, you're going to be okay. What's the
Yep.
next step? Keep it simple.
Yeah, very simple. And I think, especially if it encourages people, because I know I held off on, because I think too, when you're thinking about these timelines, and why I think I put a timeline and why I think people put a timeline on it, is because we're extremely afraid that we're going to hit like this emotional peak of negativity and then we're just going to remain in there. And the
Mm-hmm.
real question becomes like, how long am I going to feel crappy, basically? Can you tell me how long I'm going to feel like that? Because you're really just trying to move on from it. And I think we forget about what's on the other side. It can feel overwhelming when you're dealing with the different things in your life, the things that have hurt you. And when you hit this peak, you're thinking, like, okay, I'm going to hit this peak and I'm going to stay up here and it's just going to keep on going. And that's going to be the rest of my life. Well, no. Yes, you might kind of hit a crescendo and you might hit a peak, but once you hit it, it will come down and then you'll level out. And then it's 10 times better to look forward to having that happen and then level out and have your life continue on a basis where you definitely can respond better to a lot of the different things going on. Especially when you deal with a lot of the things going on, you don't hit the same kind of highs and lows.
No.
You don't hit the same kind of highs and lows. Whereas if you don't and you kind of are just leaving it alone, not deciding to really address it, you will continue to go high, low, high, low. So don't be afraid of the high. Yes, it will be there, but you will level out and you won't remain in pain. It won't kill you.
Right.
It's just going to be that initial impact, but then it's so much better afterwards. So much better.
Mm-hmm. So
Mm-hmm.
much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is the Codependency podcast. How would you describe codependency?
Yeah. I like to think of it as any time that you live your life in a way that is as a result of trying to get someone else's or something else filled. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think that codependency can manifest itself with a person or it can also manifest itself with like an actual thing or an activity or
Right.
something like that. We all have different ways that we cope with different things. So for me, in my past, and a lot of people that I work with as well, is a lot of codependency for me came from the ambitious side, which
Mm-hmm.
is why it can be very sneaky and people don't actually really associate. Because, you think about, well, if, my life is fine, I'm okay, because you have all of these outside factors. An ambitious person, someone who's really successful, can't possibly be codependent or have all these different things. We think of like the way negative extreme of it.
Right.
Um, but even for me, I that was a part of whatever, that was a part of my identity was success. And
Mm-hmm.
I had my own definition of that. And my own definition of that was just a lot of money. If I got a lot of money, then we're all good. I've reached the pinnacle of everything. And I depended on that every
Mm-hmm.
time to establish who I was and whether I liked myself or not. So
Right.
codependency can really be whatever it is that you're linking to your identity as being great or not great. So
Right.
it can be, and then yeah, it can manifest itself in people as well. I remember having relationships where I needed their approval in order to love myself. That was the filter.
Mm-hmm.
If you like this part about me, then I like this part about me. Never the reverse,
No.
which led to a lot of heartache, a lot of disappointment, and frankly, a lot of confusion because people change their minds about stuff all the time. They evolve, they change. So if they change, that meant I was at the mercy constantly of them and living in a place just not being powerful at all and
Nope.
deciding this is who I want to be, this is how I want to live my life. And yeah, so I think, yeah, codependency in any fashion, whether it's a person or whether it's an activity, it's whatever you're associating your identity with and making that the big tier. That's like the number one thing
Right.
that needs to happen for you as you go and you live your life.
Right. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You said at the mercy of. So this
Yes.
thing or this person.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you see it in the clients you coach?
Yeah, it shows up in a lot of different ways. One example that just immediately comes to my mind, because I have worked with a few people that have had either body image issues or tried to lose weight in some kind of way. And I've seen it in a very similar example to what I gave. I've had someone, for example, who she she looks great. Like if you and I looked at her, we'd be like, awesome. But
Like
she has,
people looked at you and your success,
yeah, yeah.
right? So we look at her. She's beautiful. Okay.
She's beautiful. She looks in great shape, all of that. But the story she had for herself was that she did not. Like, she hated her belly. She hated all these different parts of her body that she just didn't really like. And after some digging and investigating, we really just kind of found out that it came from something earlier in life where with her siblings. And her siblings always got attention with their body and being in really great shape, but for some
Mm,
reason she didn't. So she translated that as my body is not enough. It's not actually matching whatever the standard is. So her siblings became the standard for a really good body image. So if she never met that, it didn't matter. It didn't
right.
matter at all. It was like if it didn't look like that, then it wasn't going to happen. But here's the interesting thing about that, and this is what I try to really tell people: at the end of the day, and this goes back to what I was saying, like she's at the mercy of what her siblings look like, and really all she wanted, which is what anybody wants, is just acceptance and love. We want to know that we're enough. You want to know that when you walk into a room that someone's going to compliment you, say that you're beautiful. We want that affirmation and the confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, it would always be in alignment with her sisters. And like, what happens if one day they completely, are not in shape? They let themselves go. Now, have you decided that you've met the tier and now you're going to be okay with your body? Like, what happens there? It's like, no, what we really need to work on is for you to get acceptance for who you are, no matter what your body shape looks like. And
Right.
you get to decide what that looks like.
Right.
So I've seen it manifest in that way. I've also seen it in relationships, like significant others. I've worked with a client who stayed with her boyfriend for a really long time. And she loved the fact that she was in a relationship, and it brought a feeling of comfort to her to know that she would not be alone.
Right.
She did have that fear of, the only reason she stayed is she thought to herself, like, if I break up with someone, if she breaks up with them, will I ever find someone else that will give me attention? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the thought process of the work of going through, is there anyone out there for me, it sounded like way more work than actually staying with this person that she actually, I mean, fine, like the guy is fine, nothing really bad happening there. But now she's in, she ended up in this relationship that particularly there could have been somebody on the other side that was 10 times better. But now
Right.
she's in a relationship with someone that she's not fully happy with because she's afraid of being alone and not being accepted by someone else down the line. And those are
Mm-hmm.
the repercussions that I find with clients that I work with, and the things that I see that they're doing. At the end of the day, it always comes down to, I don't feel like I'm accepted unless this. I don't feel like I'm worthy unless this. I don't feel like I'm enough unless this.
Right.
And it's the unless that kills us slowly. And then you have years go by and you're like, how did I end up in this relationship? How did I end up in this career? How did I end up doing this? Because at the end of the day, you were dependent on something else to really set that standard. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot. And it's like, you just need to take that time and really think about, what is it that you want? Like, remove everybody else. What do you want?
Everybody else.
Remove everybody else. What do
Right.
you want? Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Which is the name of the game for all my listeners, because they have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for being hypersensitive to what
Mm-hmm.
everybody else wants.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so easy to do. I mean, when we're kids, that's we learn from watching how the ebb and flow of, I say something, you say something, I do something, you do something. And even in the best homes with the best intention, even if you didn't have anything traumatic or anything like that, you could still end up in a situation where, your father or your mother or a sibling says something to you, and they didn't respond, maybe the way they needed to. There's something you didn't get. Maybe you had someone ignore you. And then we take that as, oh, in order to get love, I need to do this action. I need to
Mm-hmm.
treat these people, and I need to do this with this person. I need to figure it out. And then you start to learn how to adapt and become a chameleon. And you went, oh, all I have to do is learn what they want for love. Then I'm good to go. Then I'll ensure that I receive it back in the exact same way. And we make relationships, we make love, we make these major parts of our life transactional,
Right.
because we just think it needs to be this even swap. But it doesn't really actually work that way. If we're all kind of sucking each other dry, trying to get fulfillment in a very particular way, and the other person doesn't know that you need that.
No.
You're just, you're going about your life, but those are the things that really hold you bondage and in prison, trying to constantly please other people. And I get it, because I went through that too. I was like, oh, I figured out what I need to get you to do to respond well. We're not actually building a relationship, a healthy one. I just know how to get, love from you. So now that I have that and my tank is full, I can walk away and go get what other tank I need from somebody else. You
Right.
know, it's such a it's a sad way to live, and I think it's what keeps people from really enjoying life at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
There's no enjoy or joy in, right, trying to mold your body so your parents approve of it like they approve of your siblings. There's no
Mm-hmm.
real joy and contentment in settling, having doubts, but remaining in a relationship because you fear there's not another person on the planet who will be
Yeah.
with you. That
Yeah.
that sounds horrible.
Yeah. And such a normal thing. And most times I don't think we, think about it. In our minds, it's like, oh, I don't diet, that diet didn't work for me, or or I just need to work out harder. And maybe on a very surface level, that's very true, but you may be perfectly healthy for your body size, and it's something surface, like something below
Right.
that surface you really need to tackle. But those are the things that we do when we're living our life, is we see just the reoccurring patterns of all these decisions that we're making, meanwhile not even seeing the undercurrent
Mm-hmm.
of, I actually really have a problem with, I don't feel like I was ever my body was ever accepted. I never accepted it. It doesn't feel perfect. It doesn't feel right, and I've never established a standard for myself. So I'm going to continue to let everybody else establish it for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So you're doing great work, seeing all these clients. What do you sense, Crystal, is the number one thing that holds people back in life?
Yeah. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound really simple, but it's my true belief. And it's lack of awareness, just lack of awareness. It sounds so simple, but I tell people all the time, I don't think we always understand the power of that. If you don't see it, you won't fix it. If you don't see what's happening, it just goes buried underneath and you never actually touch it. So I always tell people, because even when, I don't think you have to have everything figured out on your own, but I do think you're going to have to get to the point where you can admit to yourself there's something off, and then be able to go in and get help for it. And I'm a firm believer that that's something you need someone else to help you with, only because we
Mm,
have our own blind spots. We really do. We can't see ourselves in a very perfect picture. We tend to only see certain variations, or at least we only see our own beliefs. So introducing someone else into the picture will help you be aware of, yes, it can bring awareness to beliefs that you do have currently, and also give you perspective on other ones to help you really shape whether you like what you have mapped out for yourself or you don't. But I
mm-hmm.
think the biggest thing that has held people back is really, that I see, is just that first initial stage of just not being aware of themselves, not being aware of
Right.
them. Yeah. And it's just like, take time and really, an exercise I like to tell my clients to do. And obviously, as I work with them, I help them with investigating what's really going on. But I always tell them, like, take time and just ask yourself a series of why questions and see what comes up for you. Because most people, I don't think, stop and do that. Okay, so I have this particular result in my life. Maybe there's a certain, maybe you want to go for a promotion, or maybe you're in a relationship and you're not sure why you're still in that relationship. Something feels off. Start asking yourself why. Why am I in this relationship? Oh, because I feel like we do pretty well, or we really enjoy each other's company. And I really like this guy. Great. Why do you like this guy? And keep going down the layers and keep asking
Mm-hmm.
yourself why until you can really go no further. And you will come across, every time people get really surprised and they're like, oh, I see what I was doing there. And that in and of itself is powerful, because it snaps you out of like what your current pattern is. So you can actually see what needs to happen next, or at least give you enough perspective to start exploring more. So lack of
Mm-hmm.
awareness, hands down.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And having someone to support you in building that awareness is mandatory, right? We have our blind spots. We can't, we just, we, yeah, it's so obvious to someone else and we can't see it.
Yeah.
What would you say, right? I know I hesitate to go to therapy. I'm sure it took some time for you to finally take that first step on your healing journey. What do you say to the young women struggling, right? Running around in circles, but hesitant because I should be able to do it myself.
Mm. Yeah, and I understand that because I thought that myself. And I will say to really investigate why you think you need to be able to do it on your own.
So more whys.
More
Why?
why questions. Why more why? So I always tell people, why do you need to be able to do it on your own? For me, I know that that answer was because I was afraid of looking weak. We have this association that if we ask for help, especially, if you're really ambitious and you feel like everything is on track and you don't want to appear to not have it together because your image and your mind and what you've given or what you've portrayed out to people, you feel like that's going to alter somehow. That's your own belief about your own self acceptance because you haven't accepted that there's an issue yet. And that's why it kind of goes back to that self awareness. So I said that's the biggest thing that really holds people if they won't stop and say, like, I don't accept the fact that I don't actually feel worthy to be able to, go to that next level in life, whatever it is, or I don't think that I'm worthy to get help, or face this rejection, this huge rejection that I had in my life. And we get really scared of that and we're afraid, what does this mean if I go and ask someone for help for this? It makes it that much more real, that much more tangible, which I know is very scary. But I think it kind of goes back, Marissa, to what I was saying kind of almost in the beginning with that crescendo of hitting that pain peak of like, hey, I know you're scared that, everything's just going to kind of hit the fan and you don't really, it's the uncertainty that makes us so nervous. But yes, you'll have that initial freak out of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go see a therapist or I'm going to go see a coach. And I'm about to dish out the stuff that I don't even like to deal with myself, and we think we're too much, because it feels too much to us. But that's the whole point. You tried to take on the entire world by yourself. And really, we're not really meant for that. We're definitely beings of community and we're meant to process things with other people. So if you're nervous about it, totally get it. Just have that moment where you say to yourself, hey, which is worse? Me continuing to live this way or me finding something 10 times better? Because what would happen if you thought whatever that image is that you have in your head that's 10 times better of what it would look like to not have that space be, completely empty, to feel loved, to feel accepted. If you walked around every day like that, just like imagine that, what's it worth it to you to get there?
Right.
That's the first step of like, okay, I'm going to bypass my fear. And I bet you anything, as soon as you sit down with someone, I know for me, I was like, oh, somebody's finally here.
Right.
I'm at my myself. Someone's
Huge.
finally actually looking at this. Huge
Right.
weight. Lift it up.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. And more whys. Why? Why do you think you need to work by yourself?
Yeah.
All right. So, when do you sense someone knows when they're living a life based on other people's dreams or their own, right? How do we build that discernment?
Yeah. I always tell people that it typically, if you're living more from someone else's side of things, it's typically you will feel like you're in prison. You will feel locked away. You will feel like the outsider. It's kind of the same thing when, I don't know, maybe nobody else has had that experience, but like, it's like the first day of school, you're in a new school, everybody else is running around, they have their friends, they have their little cliques. You're standing on the outside observing everyone else, but you can't seem to necessarily connect with that. That's what it feels like. And what, if I were to paint a picture, it's like when you're living for someone else's dream. Because you're always outside of connecting to your own self, of connecting to your own desires, you will feel like an outsider all the time.
Right.
And everything else will feel like I'm just pretending because I'm trying to figure out how to fit into this world. When you're really doing things for you and what you want, you don't feel like that. You feel like you just kind of, you still may have like different fears and things like that come up, but you don't have this sense of like everyone else is doing this like thing and that maybe that's the better way to do it. You don't have all of those questions coming up or why is she more successful Or why does she have the better relationship? You don't have those kind of questions coming into your mind because you're not trying to have that relationship, or you're not trying to have that particular success. You're really working on your own. So the codependency of all the other things that you think need to line up for you to actually live your dream go away, because you're focused really on what you're trying to do. So whenever I start to hear, or see clients bring up, like, I just feel like they have something better, or I can't seem to really connect to this relationship that I can't really figure out. I'm like, all right, there's probably something happening in there that you're outside of and you're disassociating from, because it's probably something that you actually really don't like. And that doesn't mean that you have to change anything, but it might mean that your motives, like the actual origin of your motives, are not actually in the right place.
Right.
So those are some of the things that come up. But yeah, really just like feeling like you're in that prison, that you're in bondage, you're shackled in some kind of way, and you feel like you just can't break free of it.
Mm-hmm. And who do you sense is like the most common person, the clients you work with, like whose dreams are they typically living out that they need to let go of? Is it mom? Is it dad? Mom and dad? Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of depends. It typically is whoever you felt the most abandoned from. So if you have, like, if your dad, for example, because there's, different, when I say abandoned, there's different levels of that. You could have like a father who was never in your life. You could have a father that was actually in your life but wasn't emotionally available to you. So there's different levels of that. And most likely, I think, and I use father because as females, we naturally, we have a very, we have different types of relationships between mom and dad. And for dad, typically that symbolizes a lot of protection. We see that side of it. So maybe if, for example, your relationship with your dad, you never really felt protected, in any kind of way, your natural inclination is going to be to try to find safety in something else. So that could end up being in a boyfriend. That could end up being in money. It's like, I never felt safe. I need to find a way to accommodate or cope, whatever words you want to use, and I now need to feel safe. And so it really just depends. And there's people who have, it could be on the other side with their mom, and they could have had a specific relationship where maybe mom was overbearing and like controlling and trying to take over, and live vicariously through you. So then you could end up going in a totally opposite direction and deciding, like, I need to have a certain sense of freedom in some kind of way. Or it could be on the other side where you acclimated to it and decided, I'm actually going to go with whatever it is that she's saying, because it has to be mom's vision. It has to be mom's dream. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. It just depends on who what experiences you've had in life. But I typically tell people, look for the areas that you feel like you've had the most lack in, the places where you did not have a connection to, that, because that's usually the areas that are fragmented for you, and you might not be able to really see it, like what you're doing with it. But if you can find it, you might, if you do those why questions, you might actually find and say, wow, like, I actually never felt safe, like with my dad. Like, he never really made me feel emotionally safe, or in other circumstances that could be physically safe. And that's why I'm doing this, because I feel if I can just, have that great boyfriend, or I can get that promotion, or I can make this amount of money, that I will finally feel safe.
Right.
So it can always, but we always are looking for that underlying thing that we didn't get. We're trying to find a way to get it. So look for the areas that you've been abandoned, or have some lack in there. And that's a good place to start.
Right. So why questions, right? Are my dreams mine? Are they my mom or my dad's, or my mom and dad's? I'm sensing it's like two parts, because, right, if my dad, right, I'm a young 20-something listener, if my dad didn't provide emotional protection, right, if he did abandon me that way, I'm going to seek it elsewhere But
Mm-hmm.
also, what if I do everything he ever wanted me to do? Will he
Mm-hmm.
provide the emotional security then? Maybe? Let me accomplish whatever dream he had for me, so maybe I'll get that.
So
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it can be on either side, but it always originates from that standpoint of like, what didn't happen for you?
Right.
What did you feel you missed on? You know, what did you miss out?
Right. Let's talk about how can our listeners, how can these codependents learn to love how they're living their life right now? Right? They're
Yeah.
listening and like, "Oh god, I'm living out my mom's dream, or I'm dating this idiot cuz I sense there's some security, or I'm winning all these prizes at work for all these
Mm-hmm.
other people." How right? That's one of your superpowers, is like learn to love your life now.
Yep.
And
Right now.
yeah, how can they do that?
Right now. So this is going to sound counterintuitive, but I tell people start by accepting everything right now about who you are. Let's put aside all the accomplishments that you have. Let's just throw those out on the table. If we removed all of those, how do you feel about yourself right now? If you hate yourself, you may love yourself, you may be disappointed. It actually doesn't matter, but take a moment and accept that in this moment. And I know that that's a scary thing, and I think it sounds counterintuitive to people because they think, well, wait, Crystal, I thought we're supposed to like move on from this. I don't want to stay and being disappointed or hating myself or anything like that. And I just want to say to that, I'm not saying accept it and then just sit in it. Because sometimes people think acceptance means that I'm saying it's okay that I remain here. And that's not what I'm saying. The first part really is just being okay with that's the situation. If I hated myself. And the first step really for me to start enjoying life was to go, of course, finding out why that was.
Mm-hmm.
But why? But then just like, why does this have to be a problem for me right now? Yes, this is where I'm at. But the only way I'm going to actually move to the next step is to accept that I don't feel valuable, I don't feel worthy, and start there. So it's not accepting it from the standpoint of like, oh, everything's, rainbows, it's fine that I don't love myself. It's accepting that that's actually where I'm at right now. And the reason I tell people that, you'd be surprised, like, follow it with compassion. But the reason you have to start there is because, like I said, life is always going to throw you curveballs. And we have this thought that like if we accept it that nothing will change from it. That only happens if you decide nothing changes from it. If you decide to make changes and start getting the assistance that you need, you'll be fine. But
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to start with that, because what's going to happen is, let's just say who you are now and who you're becoming, you move to who you're becoming. You go through the process, everything's great. You're now in the future self that you have envisioned for yourself. There's going to be another future self after that. Like, you're going to have, things are going to shift and change, and you're going to think, oh, I'm ready to go to this other level. And in order to keep progressing on in life, you need to start learning how to accept where you are so that you can actually start to live where you are. People
Mm-hmm.
want to live where they're going to be. I wish that's another one of those like snap your fingers kind of situation. I wish it was a snap your finger and I all of a sudden feel like, I'm my self-worth, my self-esteem is on the top of the hill. I wish it was that simple, but it's not. And the moment that you actually can say, and you might have, like I said, that moment where you go, oh, yeah, I actually don't really feel like I deserve to have the relationship of my dreams. I don't feel like I deserve to have the career of my dreams, the business of my dreams. I actually don't feel worthy of that. It's a scary moment, but you follow it with compassion, and then you get to work. You get to work on the things that you need to do, think, so that you can feel worthy. You can start becoming worthy. Worthiness is inherent, but you can really start to envision those things so that you can move on to the next
Right.
thing. But I tell people, it's like, I know that it sounds scary because you may think like my life is a complete mess. How can I like go through. It's like, well, I'm telling you, the first place to start is start enjoying it now, because it's not going to change later. Even if you do all the right actions and you keep moving forward and you get to like this other place where you make more money, or you have a new relationship, or whatever the case may be that you're really trying to go for, never hitting and learning how to accept where you are will mean no matter where you go, you will never accept it.
Right.
It will never be enough. And then you'll be this crave monster that goes around and is like, it's not enough, I need to do this. It's not enough, I need to do this. But once you become enough and you say, I'm enough, it's a little messy right now, but I'm working on it, that's when things get really interesting. And you can actually start making changes towards what you want to do. Because people think that they'll make changes when, and sometimes, yeah, like when they get desperate enough, which is true, you can hit lows. But I found the most significant changes happen when you know that you're worth it. Right. When you know that you're worth having the life that you want, the relationship that you want, the career that you want, the business that you want. When you know that you're worth it, everything else will really start to fall in place, instead of counterintuitively thinking, I'm not worth it, so I'm going to do all this other stuff to try and be worth it. That's just going to send you in circles. It's just going to send you in circles. So learn to accept where you are, have that moment, admit to yourself, okay, this is where we are, and take the good with the bad. You've got some good in there, and you probably have some not so good in there. Follow it with compassion, and then just start getting to work if you've got some changes that you want to make. So it's never, you're moving from surface level to like beneath, like below that. And it's once you have that moment, and this is where it comes interesting, because, and that's what I said, I know it sounds scary, but this is where it comes beautiful, because then they can reach out to you, they can reach out to coaches and get the tools and resources that they need to move from that step. I was not taught at all, really how to associate well with my emotions and learn how to move on from, where I was to where I needed to be. I only learned how to respond to the world around me and do the actions that everyone told me to do. Go to school, get some good grades, go to college, graduate from college, go, find a really great career, get married, have kids. Mm-hmm. That's what I was taught. And the stuff in between, like, oh, we hope for the best, The other stuff about what you do when, you have all these other things that happen in your life, when the pandemic hits, when you lose your job, when you've been rejected by, someone that you really, really love and had a great relationship with. Those are the things that, were a complete mystery to me. Right. Nobody told me how to do that. TV maybe was the closest thing, but that's not really always a great source either. So, so it's just, yeah, I know it's scary, but it's like, as soon as you get there, that's when magic happens, because then you can stop, doing the hamster wheel, like you said. And then you can reach out to someone to get help and say, all right, I acknowledge that I have an issue here. I've got all of these things I've been trying to do, because I don't really feel that great about myself right now. And I need to feel good about me so I can actually make decisions for myself and not depend on someone else's standards to make those decisions for me.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. Yeah. And where can people find you?
Yes, as long as you can remember my name, I tell people you can find me Crystal Morgan. Yes, CRYSTAL for Crystal. But Instagram at Crystal Morgan Coaching, Facebook at Crystal Morgan Coaching, my website, crystalmorgancoaching.com. So reach out to me anytime. And yeah, it's been so fun. Thank you.
Today's episode is sponsored by Frame, a therapist matching service. They want to help you find the right therapist. And you guys, this is their third episode that they have sponsored, and no one has signed up. So help me help you, and go check out their site, www.tryframe.com/dummy, DUMMY. How it works is you create a profile, answer questions about you and what you want to work on in therapy, then voila, Frame matches you with 6 to 8 therapists. You can chat with them, read their profiles, and choose the one that's just right for you. Using Frame to find your therapist is free, and they are also offering my listeners an exclusive code for $20 off each of your first 3 sessions. Girl, hop on it. Tryframe.com/dummy. Thank you for listening. One favor to help a sista out. Well, I guess there's 2. So go to tryframe.com/dummy. And also, please leave a rating and review. I am loving your feedback so far. Would love to hear more. So help me help you and leave a rating. Thank you so much for listening. As always, if you do not feel seen, I see you. If you do not feel heard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. This is Marissa Escobar signing off. I will see you next week. You're still here? Just kidding. Girl, this is not therapy and I'm not your therapist, okay? This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the publisher, or the guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional information. If you want or need a professional, you should find one.